Jerusalema ikhaya lami, ilondoloze uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Jerusalema ikhaya lami, ilondoloze uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze zuhambe nami, dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze Shilana, ilondoloze, 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 zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Essa Udekbe. As always, this is Serenity with Essa. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about self-care. Yes, I know you've heard it before, but today I'll be looking at self-care from a holistic perspective, and this includes how we look after our spirit, soul, and body. Before I go any further, let me let you in on what the World Health Organization says about self-care. They define self-care as the practice of taking on an active role in protecting one's well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress or illness. The question I'm asking today is, what is your self-care routine? What do you do to ensure that you nurture your spirit, your soul, and your body? Please send me a message, let me know so that we can learn together. As always, I'm going to be applying myself by highlighting some of the things that I do to look after myself. Please be aware that this list is by no means exhaustive. It's just an aspect of the things that I do to maintain my well-being. Number one, I stay away from harm. I stay away from harm. Please note that I'm not only referring to physical injuries, I'm also talking about the things that have the potential to harm me mentally, the things that have the potential to harm my spirit or my soul. And I'll just give you a brief example of how I do this. I am mindful of the places that I go. I am mindful of the things that I feed my eyes with. And I am mindful of the things I listen to. Number two, I am learning to acknowledge all of my feelings. Yes, I acknowledge all of my feelings, the bad, the good, even the unpleasant ones. However, I am also learning not to be overwhelmed by my feelings, particularly the unpleasant ones. Number three, self-expression. Self-expression is a key aspect of my self-care routine. Now note that this expression is not necessarily to anybody. I express myself to myself, if that makes sense. I do a lot of self-talk. I do a lot of positive affirmation, and I can really see the impact they are making in my life. Number three, I seem to be losing track now. I am learning to be less critical of myself. And I find that this is helping in my everyday relationship, because the more I am less critical of myself, the more I'm able to accept people's way of being without the need to fix them. Number five, I'm learning to say no. This is very simple and self-explanatory. I don't need to add anything to this. I am learning to say no to things that no longer bring me honor, and you too can. So what else? What else do I do as part of my self-care routine? I am learning to avoid stress. I am learning to focus on what is important and what is relevant. So if you've been following from the beginning, you will be aware that I'm talking about self-care from a holistic perspective, and I'm looking at self-care from a mental point of view. And to round off, I'm going to be talking about self-care from a physical point of view. What sort of things do we do, to maintain our physical body? I know most of us are already doing these things, but I just want to reiterate them so that we can sort of put in a bit more effort in nurturing our well-being, so that we can be the best that we can be, not only for ourselves but for the people around us and for the larger community. Number one, indulge in taking a proper bath. Yes, please, where possible, take a proper bath. Scrub all the necessary places. I don't need to stress. I don't need to expand on this. You know what I'm talking about. Take a proper bath. Ensure you look clean, you look fresh, because these things sometimes they are taken for granted, but they have a long way in enhancing our confidence, in enhancing in how we view ourselves and how we are viewed by other people. Number two, you may want to invest in lifestyle changes. You may like to invest in eating healthily. You may like to invest in exercising, but please make sure you're in the right state before you can embark on any form of strenuous activity. Number three, you may want to develop a good sleeping pattern. I know this is challenging to achieve because we're living in a world where everyone juggles. We are trying to juggle families with careers, with businesses, with education. It's tricky to develop a good sleeping pattern, but let's endeavor to put in a bit more effort so that we can nurture our well-being in the process. So this is where I'm going to be ending today. It's quite simple. I'm looking at self-care from a balanced perspective. I'm looking at self-care from a mental point of view and from a physical point of view. And like I said before, it's not in any way exhaustive. It's just a highlight. Send me a message. Let me know what you do for yourself so that I can learn too. I know those of you who already prefer to communicate with me privately. That is also welcome. Now, before I call it a day, let me stress this. Let me say this. Regardless of what is happening in the world, regardless of the political situation, regardless of the coronavirus pandemic, we are still here. We are still here, and we cannot afford to take our eyes off of ourselves. We are sacred beings, and it is my responsibility and your responsibility to look after ourselves, so that we can begin to take the necessary steps towards living a fully functional life that will enable us to make impact in our society. So I really do hope you've had a nice time hanging out with me today, and until I see you next time, it has been Serenity with Essie. Take care.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze